Hello, everybody. We're about to start this webinar that we are hosting at CARTO in collaboration with Experian. I think I'm just gonna give it a couple of minutes so more people can join and we can get started. Hey, Andrea, you're over there.
Yes, I'm here. Sorry, I was on mute. Good start.
Nice. Okay, so I think we have around like 30 participants. So I guess we could just get started, right? As a matter of fact, this webinar is being recorded, so everybody's gonna get the recording after it has happened in a couple of days, I believe. And also for the questions and answers that you might have during the webinar, there is a questions and answers section within Zoom where you can post them, and we will try to address them at the end of the webinar, right? So let's get started then. Welcome everybody. I'm here with Andrea together today, and we are going to be tackling very exciting world of geomarketing and out-of-home campaigns. We're gonna see how CARTO and Experian data can be joined together in order to optimize international out-of-home campaigns. And yeah, let's start. Okay, so first things first, let's do some introductions. My name is Marta. I'm a solutions consultant at CARTO. I work very closely with customers, companies, organizations that approach us with different spatial use cases that are looking to solve. And I'm always trying to find the best spatial approach to solve their challenges or the things they want to address. And here with me is Andrea, please.
Hi, so I'm Andrea McDonald. I work within the marketing services business at Experian. And within our product management team, I look after all of our international data products, which includes WorldView, which is the focus of today's session. I work with our clients and also our development team to ensure that our product roadmap aligns to our clients' requirements.
Fantastic. So here's a very quick agenda of the things that we are going to be covering today. We really want to show you how out-of-home companies can use geospatial analytics with real-world use case examples. We will see how you can best combine CARTO technology stack that we provide with Experian data in order to gain insights about your campaign audience, expand your outdoor operations globally, and of course, look at those best practices that you can implement in order to build effective geospatial analytics solutions with a live demo. So first things first, I think I'm gonna pass on the floor to Andrea. Oh, I think first we're gonna run a very quick poll in order to get started with the webinar. So we're really happy to learn a little bit more about our audience and see what is your current involvement in outdoor advertisement. I don't know if you guys are already planning and managing outdoor media campaigns with your customers, or if maybe you're an advertiser and you're already investing in this type of outdoor media campaigns, or maybe you're just here to learn a little bit more about this type of world and see what type of solutions and options you may have. So maybe we already got some some feedback. Okay, so I see like around 54% of the audience today is actually deploying this type of outdoor media campaigns. Some of you are advertisers, and also around 33% of you are actually just looking to learn a little bit more about the things that we can do with the spatial analytics and out-of-home media campaigns. Fantastic. So yeah, Andrea, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Marta. So just to set the scene, I just wanted to share a couple of statistics about out-of-home and the out-of-home market. So at the moment, it's growing, and it's expected to grow by 6.5% in 2023, and spending is projected to reach $17.5 billion this year. So there's a definite upsurge in out-of-home following the dip that occurred in the pandemic. And what we're going to talk about today is why quality international data and geospatial analytics matter in out-of-home. So we can just say that we can help advertisers identify the locations where their target audience is most likely to live. And this ensures that messages reach the right people and maximizes impact, improving return on investment and advertising campaigns. So we just wanted to look initially at the challenges facing organizations when they're running global marketing campaigns. And we're going to focus here initially on data and what issues there are in sourcing data to run global marketing campaigns. So one of the first challenges that advertisers have is accessing data with coverage that so to make sure that the data covers all the markets that they want to run campaigns in. That's an initial challenge. Secondly, if you can access data, is it consistent across markets? This is another thing that is difficult to achieve. So if you are looking at data in France versus data in Germany, can you get access to the same variables? And can you source data consistently across markets? Third area to look at is the resolution of the data. So it might be that in one country you can access data at a postcode level, in another country it's at an administrative geography level, and it may be that that level of geography isn't effective for out-of-home advertising. That's something else to consider. It's very likely, and historically it was always the case, that you would have to work with multiple data suppliers to access data across countries. And this means that it's very time consuming to actually source the data. Then another consideration is, once you have your data, what is the provenance of that data? Is it accurate and is it reliable? And most importantly, is it up to date? It could be that you can access data, but it's from, it's 5 years out of date. And finally, looking at all of that in a round, you can see there that there are quite a lot of issues, and it can be quite time consuming, and in turn this makes it quite an expensive process. So there are definitely opportunities in running your out-of-home campaigns through being able to source better data. And with WorldView, which is the Experian product that covers our international markets, we have global coverage, we have consistent data, we have data at a low level of resolution. So rather than postal geography or administrative geography, we have developed all of our data at a 250 by 250 meter grid, which is a very small unit of geography. This means that it's quick to deploy. And you can access the data from a single supplier, a single trusted supplier. Experian is a sort of very well-known data supplier, and you can access reliable data. And as a result, it means that the pricing and the cost of accessing the data is lower. So we're just going to have a look at a couple of out-of-home use cases that focus on where Experian data can provide useful input into your running your marketing campaigns. So the first use case that we're going to look at is customer segmentation. And using an international segmentation tool allows you to enrich and profile customer data. And this in turn allows you to define, describe, and understand your ideal target audiences using a consistent segmentation. You can then select the best segments for your particular product that you're wanting to run the campaign for and view where those segments live. And then you can then match that to your out-of-home panels to make sure that you're placing your ads in the best places. So this slide just provides a bit more information on WorldView segments, which is the Experian segmentation that covers many countries in the globe, and it allows clients to plan and advertise globally using a consistent segmentation and consistent data. So it works on the basis that if you know your audience in your local market, you can know your audience globally. We have defined 10 segments, 10 groups based on age, life stage, disposable income, household size, and urban and rurality. And it's been created by building the data across a good selection of countries. You can see the WorldView groups here, so they range from A down to J. So the first one there is City Advantage, so you're looking at affluent city dwellers who have fast-paced lifestyles. You can then move through to family economy, so younger families with modest incomes, down to rural community where it's remote householders living in sort of farmland areas and with access to limited services. So you get a full range there. This is just one example of one of the groups, affluent city dwellers, and this just shows more of a description of that group and images from across the world showing that particular group. So the second use case that we're going to look at is coverage area analysis, or it could also be known as trade area analysis. And in this, you can access your inventory of current panels and then create and prioritize coverage areas for those panels. So you can look at data, wider data sources associated with those panels and the areas and their catchment areas, and then benchmark performance across all your locations and identify areas with untapped audience demand. So these are some of the additional data sets that we can provide. So we've got here our base set of socio-demographics. So this covers age, gender, and disposable income, also unemployment. And we also have 12 categories of consumer expenditure. So you can see there that they range from spend on food and non-alcoholic beverages through spend on transport and spend on hotels and catering. So there's 12 categories there. And then the final data set that I'm going to mention in this section is our points of interest data. So the points of interest data can allow you to plot where your locations or your panels are located, and also look at businesses in the area. So if you're looking to promote a product that is sold in a supermarket, then you can see where the supermarkets are in that area and also identify where the good locations for running your campaign are. So here, this just shows another unique quality of the Experian data, which is the availability of the data at the 250-meter grid. So if you look on the left-hand side of the slide there, you can see the typical level of data that is provided when you're looking for data internationally, and that would typically be at a postcode or administrative geography level. And when you look at the data at that level, it shows that the whole of Bucharest is falling into the same category, to the same band of disposable income. Whereas if you are looking at the data at a more granular level on the right-hand side, the grids are the 250 meter level show that the actual higher levels of disposable income are in the north or northwest of the city, rather than it being the whole city.
Okay, that looks definitely more granular than what can be achieved at an administrative level, for example. But I'm sure people are wondering, okay, this is fantastic for one city, but what happens if you want to take this elsewhere, if you want to be operating in multiple countries, etc.? How do you address that?
Yeah, so that was an example of Bucharest in Romania, but you can see here that we have access to data in over 90 markets. And you can see there that all the continents in the globe are represented. So which means that if you want to run a campaign across Europe, you can do that. And then if you want to expand into Southeast Asia, then that's also possible.
Fantastic.
Okay, so we're now going to go on to the third use case, and I'm going to hand over to Marta, and she's going to look at territory expansion in out of home. And she's really going to bring the data that I've been talking about to life as she shows it in the CARTO platform.
Okay, thank you, Andrea. So the third use case that we are going to be focusing on is going to be aligned with that global expansion that we've been talking about previously. I'm going to perform like a global panel scoring in order to prioritize and know exactly which panels are the most adequate to place our advertisement out of home campaign. And I really invite you to map along with me. If you go to that QR code that you see on the screen, that will take you directly to a sign up page where you can start a free trial with CARTO. So yeah, let's get started. And of course, let's see Experian data in action. Okay, so let's put the context around the use case. We are a company that is dealing with a large set of panels, out-of-home panels. And this startup has approached us because they want to deploy an advertisement campaign to promote their new plant-based drink. It is like a drink they have invested a lot of time on, very nice packaging, amazing recipe. It's quite a niche product. It's not for everybody. They know exactly what type of audience they want to reach out to. So they have given us some requirements, right? They want us to target on population that is between 30 and 59 years old. They want to see those areas with higher income levels because this product is not going to be one of the cheapest ones. They want to see if they can locate those advertisements in places with high spending on food and beverages. And the first place where they want to launch this campaign is going to be Lisbon in Portugal, but they're also looking to expand more widely to South Africa and Mexico in the future. So how are we going to do this? I'm going to explain the methodology really quickly. We're going to follow a series of steps, and I'm going to show you the process from the beginning to the end. We're going to start by setting our base data and trying to, our panels, what type of panels we're going to work with, and also the data that we're going to use to understand what's going on in the city and how we can best address those areas that are most suitable for the placement of the ads. To do that, we're going to have to join all those variables that I'm going to show you in a common grid. We're going to use some CARTO analytic toolbox functions that I will show you. And that would allow us to create a composite score in order to know where those best locations are according to all those variables that we're taking into account. And using the coverage area of our panels, we'll be able to intersect or cross that information in order to associate that final score to each of those individual panels. And that will allow us to decide very well where to place our ads or where to prioritize or start our marketing campaign. So how are we going to do this? I'm going to be using fundamentally the analytics toolbox, the CARTO analytics toolbox, which is a set of functions that we have developed for all the data warehouses that we actually connect to. This set of functions is quite extensive. It allows you to create a lot of different things with your data, transform, aggregate, you have location data services, etc. And all these functions run natively within your data warehouse. So it's really worth to take a look at them. In this specific use case, we're going to use this analytic toolbox in order to generate those coverage areas. We're also going to use functions to aggregate that customer segmentation data. And also, we're going to create a composite score with them. And I'm going to be taking different approaches on how to perform this analysis. We're going to see some queries, some codes, SQL codes, but we're also going to see non-SQL approaches to perform spatial analytics, which I think is quite interesting, to give you an idea of what can be done with CARTO when you are a technical user or not such a technical user. So one of the things that we're going to be looking at is CARTO workflows, which is something as a new functionality that we have released that will allow you to perform this type of spatial analytics workflows without the need to code. So workflows would work a little bit with these drag and drop boxes that you can just place on a screen. And then when you're ready, you can just hit run and the whole analysis will be executed at the same time versus the SQL traditional way to execute analysis, which is also amazing, but I understand that not everybody is such a fan of it. And this brings us to our second question within the webinar. It would be very nice to know what type of user or SQL user you are, or what describes you better. Are you amazing, super comfortable with it, use it on a daily level? Do you have just like a basic understanding? You've never used SQL? I don't know about you, Andrea. I don't know if you use SQL very often.
I have to say personally, I don't use SQL, but we have a lot of people in our analytics and product development teams that do. What about you?
I use it quite often. I mean, I'm creating maps all the time, so I would say I feel quite comfortable with SQL.
Good.
Okay, what do we have here? Interesting. So 26% consider themselves SQL pros, 42 basic understanding, but at least know a little bit how it works, how to implement some analysis. And I see that like around 30% of our audience is not very familiar with SQL. So I guess the content that I have prepared for you is going to address all these type of users. So let's get started with it. All right, so what do we need to do first? First of all, we need to define our panel data. If you are a company that already has its own panels, you have your own inventory. In my case, I made it up because I didn't want to use any provider data. So what I basically did was run this very nice looking SQL query in order to generate 282 panels. And I wanted to distribute them a little bit more, in a more smart way. I wanted to distribute it accordingly to the population in Lisbon, right? So what I've done is use like the social demographics data sets from Experian to do so. And I have also associated some characteristics to our panels, such as the panel typology, which will give us like a more granular view on our data once our final map is ready. Okay, so what do we do next? We need to populate, or we need to bring all the data sets, variables that we are going to be working with. I'm going to show you all of them. So let me just jump into the first one. So here, what we are seeing is that, so the dots on the yellow dots are going to be our panels. I see that right now I'm looking at like 282, depending on the viewport. I can also like filter them by type, etc. So on the left side, I have placed some points of interest because I want to see where grocery stores, supermarkets, different places where this drink could be sold are located. I think that's going to play a role in understanding where to best place these advertisements. So I can also play with those categories. I can just check on the groceries, specialty food stores, etc. And the same for this other data set that I have on my right side, which is the one for human mobility, right? So when you're talking about out of home, something that is quite key and quite understandable is that where people are concentrating and visiting is kind of key in order to understand what panels are going to have the most impact. So in this case, I have added also like this variable in order to see this and to include it in the final index. So just by playing, with these quick filters, we can see some trends, some concentrations of POIs, the same for human mobility. And that's not all, because I am also bringing in some of the Experian data Andrea has been presenting previously. I am taking into account social demographics. Remember, they said they wanted to focus on population from 30 to 59 years old. They wanted to focus on high income levels. So what you see on the left side is that distribution of the population from 30 to 59. The one on the right side is the layer that is showing the euro per capita. So a bit of income. I can also have another layer, which is the one that is corresponding to food and beverage spending. And you can just play with those values by filtering out and starting to understand some trends. So we already see there's something going on around this area, some higher concentration of the variables that we're dealing with. So always nice to have this first analysis or this first approach to the data before we do nothing.
It's great, Marta, to see the data displayed at the grid level there, and just shows how effective it can be for out of home, because it's at a very granular level and consistent level. So if you're looking at a 250 meter grid, in one country, and you compare it to a 250 meter grid in another country, you're comparing apples with apples in terms of the size of the geography.
Yeah, it's quite granular. You are very right. So, okay, let me just show you as well where you could actually be sourcing this data. So as many of you may know, we have a very large spatial data catalog where we act as a marketplace for different data sets. In this case, you can filter by countries, categories, etc. In this case, I am selecting Experian data. So you can just access our website with the data catalog and just check on all the data sets that Experian is offering through CARTO. Fantastic. So let's go back to the slides and see what comes next. Oh, okay. So we got points of interest. We have human mobility. We have social demographics, consumer spending, a lot of different data in different formats. And we want to get a score, right? A final score. So the best way to address this is to put them all on a common grid that will allow us to measure them evenly, right? So what we are going to do is basically use an H3 grid, which is a spatial index. I have created it for our area of interest. I have created an empty one with a resolution level. And what I'm going to do is just populate this grid by aggregating all those variables in order to put them all together in the same table. So what you're seeing on the screen right now is one of the functions that we have on the analytics toolbox, which is called Gridify Enrich. And it's the function that is allowing me to create these aggregations and put them all together. I can also show you here on the documentation, on the CARTO documentation, we have a lot of information about spatial indexes because this is a data format that we love to work with because it's super quick to render. It occupies minimum space on your data warehouse and allows you to create multiple analyses with very large sets of data. So you can always come to the documentation and check the information and the functions we have with this.
Yeah, it's interesting here. Just wanted to add that, so we've been talking about the 250 meter grids, but we can also supply all of the WorldView data that we've been talking about in H3 from the start. So that is another option there.
Okay, great. So you have it either on that quadratic grid or also on the H3.
Okay. Yeah.
Fantastic. All right. So once we have done all this, we will come to score part, right? So we need to create that score that is going to allow us to understand where those fantastic locations are for the panels. Why are we doing this, right? We are trying to measure a concept that is quite complex and is very multidimensional, right? Because we're taking into account very different data sets, very different behaviors within the city, etc. So I guess like those type of processes can be very common across different sectors. For example, when you try to measure innovation or sustainability, in this case, it's like site selection, suitability, is like what defines that? Well, it is quite open. So building this type of composite scores can really help you to measure it in a proper way. And in order to do so, we're going to be using a functionality that is available to run natively on BigQuery that allows us to create that composite score. We have different types of scores that you can create. We can go for the unsupervised one, or we can go for the supervised one. The unsupervised one is going to allow us to give in or to put in our own weights if we know exactly what we want to do. I'm just going to show you very quickly here in the documentation. You can read about it. And there is this really like a nice and helpful diagram that also helps you understand what type of composite score you might be looking at building. In my case, I have followed it. I have seen that my outcome is not directly measurable. So I'm going to go for the unsupervised one. And I have expert knowledge because I want to apply custom weights to it. So here I have put on these slides the query that I have run in order to create this score. And on this side where you see weights, you can see what type of variables I am including in that score and how I am going to take them into account. So we have seen that human mobility, like the affluence of visitors, is really key, as well as like the affluence of points of interest where there are supermarkets or places where this drink could be located. And also that high income of the population. These are things that were really important for our customer, and we're going to put a little bit more weight towards those variables, but we're also like giving some importance to the spending on food and drinks, and also to the prevalence of the population. So once I have executed this analysis, I am going to be left with something that looks like this, right? So what do we have here? We have our panels data set or points, right? And then we have a grid, a composite score grid that we have created, adding all those variables together. And the question is, how do I associate that information of the score to the panels, right? And for this, this slide explains a little bit what we are going to do. We are going to calculate some coverage areas within 5-minute walks of our panels. And then we're going to cross them with that index score in order to associate finally, those coverage areas scored to the panels. And this can be done, of course, with typical queries analysis that I have been showing you so far, but you can also have the possibility to do it with non-SQL functionalities. So I'm going to show you two ways to do that. The first one would be basically, if you're on your map and you're creating, this dashboard, you can just come here to the panels. If I click on more options and I click on add SQL analysis, I'm going to get all these out-of-the-box functions that I can implement directly into CARTO without the need to type a single line of code, which is always kind of nice. So you have a lot of options. In this case, we will be using like the trade areas functionality, and then, for example, the intersect and aggregate in order to aggregate that index score to our coverage areas. And finally, I would add that value of the coverage areas with the score to my panels. That would be like the final layer I'm looking to create. Basically, whenever you click on any function, you just click on continue and it will already give you the options to include this or the other variable, select the way you want to aggregate, etc. So this is a way you could be performing this analysis with Builder. And another way that you could do that would be using what we mentioned before, workflows, right? So as I mentioned, it is like a drag and drop tool. You can just drag the tables. If you click on any of it, you will get, some information, etc., how many rows. And then you can just select on any of the components, bring it in. Right now, I'm doing exactly the same that I just described with Builder, but with workflow. So I'm creating some coverage area here and joining it and getting that average score. And I'm finally joining that score to my panels. So if I just click on run, the whole workflow starts executing at the same time. And this is quite nice in the sense that you don't have to go like step by step, because you have already set the whole process together. And once it's ready, you can just click on the last one. So the table that got generated, I can come here to the map and I can already see all my panels and the data with the score associated to it. So two ways to play with non-SQL functionalities in CARTO, which I think makes life easier for those of you that are not so technical. Okay, so what do we do with that final layer? Well, I am going to save you the pain of seeing me doing all the whole thing from the beginning. I just prepared it for you. I created this like a final map with the results that we were looking to have. And we basically have the information related to that index score to the panels. We can see obvious areas where things are looking quite good, for example. And we can also use those widgets, right, to select only those panels that are scoring really high. So we can start prioritizing. And we can also do that by, for example, saying, okay, so I want to focus my marketing campaign only on billboards. So we can see how just the billboards that we have in the city are actually scoring. And I can just look at the ones that are really going to give me the maximum audience and the maximum attention possible. And I have also added on the map other data from, in this case, from Experian. I can just come here and click on some of the data sets just to check, the data sets that we have used as a base combined with our final result. So, in the same way, you can just play with the dashboards, etc. Okay.
Marta, so you said earlier that, so this analysis that you've done is focused on Lisbon, which is fantastic. You mentioned earlier that this client was also interested in Mexico and South Africa. So could you go and quickly zoom to, to other countries? Is that possible?
No worries. I got it here. I have it everything. So all I have done is just follow the same analysis, the same process that I just described for Lisbon. I recreated it for Mexico, and I recreated it again for Cape Town using exactly the same data sets for different locations. And as you can see, the type of dashboard and panels that I'm able to display and to create is exactly the same. So I guess this really reflects the power of spatial analytics and the importance of having data sets that allow you to perform this type of analysis at an international level, right? With the same granularity. Okay, so we are already with our results table. I just wanted to, dedicate just a minute to have a look properly at the map and at those scores that we got. We see like the concentration of those green panels, or the panels that are like scoring at a higher level, is really where people are visiting Lisbon. For example, this area is very touristic. A lot of like tourist attractions are concentrated here. We also see a lot of points of interest around that area. This other area is an area with neighborhoods that have high incomes, I would say. So I feel like the weights that we applied to the score and the results that we got are actually making quite a lot of sense.
You seem to know a lot about Lisbon, Marta. Anyone would think that you might be there.
I live in Lisbon. I live in Lisbon. I actually live in this little circle here. So for me, it was also quite interesting when I designed the use case to test it somewhere where I can actually confirm that the results are actually making sense. So yeah, I encourage everybody to do the same with whatever city they are living in, and just see if the results are actually making sense to them. Okay, so last but not least, for those of you that are interested in out-of-home campaigns but are not really sure about spatial analytics as such, we also provide an application that you can use. It's really developed with the non-technical user in mind, and it's going to allow you to perform all this analysis and more without the need to worry about anything. Just a very simple way to analyze the data. So basically here is like a short video of the application that allows you to see all your panels, choose them by category, etc. You can also have like an overview of those panels on Google Street View. You can also configure like some audiences. You can choose by age, gender, etc. So you can really optimize your campaigns, and you will have the tool ready to use and very, very, very quickly. So if you have any question regarding this type of tool, you can also write to us, contact us after the webinar, and we will be very happy to provide some info about it as well. Okay, so I think this is yours, Andrea, if you want to start with the concluding thoughts.
Yeah, so if we just wanted to, we hope that you found the session useful, but just the sort of the key takeaway points are that there are a lot of challenges in deploying global campaigns, but if you have high quality data and a great analytics spatial solution like CARTO, it can be the combination can be really powerful and allow you to optimize out-of-home strategies or other digital marketing strategies. It applies across the board to social as well as programmatic. It's not only for out-of-home, and there are many other use cases for this type of analysis as well.
I have, like, as a person that is constantly having to create maps, dashboards, etc., for any location in the world. I have to admit that having like data sets that you can rely on, have the same granularity, and display the same information wherever you want to map is just really useful and saves a lot of time. So I couldn't agree more with you. All right, so thank you so much for listening. I think we came to the end of the webinar, and we are really happy to answer any questions that you may have. There are, yeah.
CARTO, so I've got some of the questions here
Okay.
in the chat. So the first one I think is for you. So what is the ratio of SQL coding and workflow in order to process reports?
Let me just read it. It really depends. So basically, you could perform the whole reports using SQL, but you could also create like an entire workflow that describes the whole process. So you could either combine them or just use one or the other. With workflows, it's kind of useful because you can just, you know, go to every exact step of the workflow and see what is going on. You can have an overview of the type of layers that you are generating. You can have a map overview. So it really depends on the analytics approach that you want to take. If you don't have a lot of SQL knowledge, I would encourage you to try out workflows. If you do have SQL knowledge, I would encourage you to try both.
Okay, thank you. So the next question is, are the analytics functions, just gone off it. Are the analytics functions you use in the demo available on any cloud data warehouse? Mm-hmm.
They are. So we provide functions. Yeah, I think they are in all of them. For the composite score, it's a function that we just released. It's quite new. I think right now it's only available on BigQuery, but I think it's a matter of weeks that is going to be deployed and available in the rest of the data warehouses. So the answer is yes.
Okay. The next question's for me. So is the 250-meter grid granularity available for all countries? And the answer to that is yes. And as we said, H3 is also available at the same time. And just to say that because the granularity of the data is small, it means that if you are interested in any other level of geography, like a postcode or administrative or a city, that the data can be accumulated to whatever level of geography you need. Okay, so
I see one for you as well. Besides the out-of-home advertising campaigns, what are the main use cases for WorldView data?
Okay, so it sort of splits out into three main user cases. So enrichment and segmentation, which allows you to understand your customers. Location planning, which we've been through in the demo today. So looking at locations and branch networks and out of home panels, that sort of analysis. And then the third one is digital advertising. And as I mentioned at the end in the concluding comments, you know, it's not only for out of home, it can be used across any digital marketing. So either programmatic, social, video on demand, it applies to them all.
Okay. I have one here from Stephen Skinner. It says, it is realistic to think that this type of analysis can be completed within a 2-week evaluation period. My answer is yes. Because we have a lot of documentation that can help you get started with CARTO really quickly. If you have a bit of SQL knowledge, it will make your life much easier for sure. But yes, like this is an analysis. Okay, I am a person that is dealing with this type of maps all the time, but it's not an analysis that took me a long time to do. So I would definitely encourage you to try it out and see how it goes.
Okay.
I have one here. Is it possible to customize your application with our own branding and input data? Yes, it is. You can customize it totally. Just get in touch with our team, and we will guide you on how to address this, but definitely, yes. So here, can I trial the WorldView data in CARTO? This is probably me to answer, right? Yes, you can. What we basically do with premium data is you request a sample. So we won't give you the whole data set, but you can have like maybe a neighborhood or a couple of neighborhoods within a city. So you can see the granularity of the data, and you can, you know, investigate it and learn about it properly. So yes.
Yeah. So another question here, out of home, is about connecting with people on the move. If the audience data is mainly based on census data, that is where people live, but not where people spend most of their time in downtown work locations. And that's true. And another enhancement that we're working on at the moment is incorporating mobility data into WorldView, so that you'll have a view of the daytime population as well as what is called the nighttime population. Looking at the income in a particular area, even if it is based on where people live rather than where they're moving to, is still valid. But we will be adding in, you know, the sort of daytime population movement as an enhancement in the next few months.
Okay. So I don't know if there are any other questions that might want to come
up. So there's just one left, I think. I think we've covered all of them, but after the planning work is done to identify priority media, how can the media be bought? So there are organizations that, you know, that work specifically in out of home, and the data can be incorporated into their offering. So, you know, there are organizations that you can work with this data and buy the media data through those organizations. If you need any more information than the answers that we're providing, please do follow up after the webinar and we can go into more detail. So I think that's all the questions answered, Marta.
Okay, great.
So I think unless there's anything else that anybody quickly wants to add into the chat, we can end the webinar there. Thank you so much for attending. We really appreciate your attendance and your questions as well. It's great to talk to everybody across the globe, actually, because I've noticed that people are signing in from Brazil and the US. So it really is a truly global presentation as well as global content.
Nice. Perfect. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you, Andrea. I think it's been exciting to tell about these use cases, and see you soon. Bye.
Bye.